I'm driving home with a buddy of mine.
Okay.
We've got like this great ultimate lie.
Right.
So I get home. My dad's waiting for me. So I tell this elaborate story about where we were, what we were doing, that I was over at my buddy's house. The words had just left my mouth. The phone rings. It's my buddy's dad calling, asking where we were, because he'd not seen us all night long.
Hot red-handed.
This is Ryan and Michelle, and welcome to the Celebrate MarriageCast, where we hope to restore and reclaim godly marriages through honest and real conversations.
Welcome to episode 57. Thank you, listener, for joining us today and working on your marriage, on your relationship. We really appreciate you investing in yourself and your spouse. Ryan, we have the fall vibes going on today.
Oh, yeah, very much so.
You look really handsome in your new fall vest.
Yeah. It's
fall and winter.
It's vest weather.
It is vest weather.
Yeah.
That was your birthday gift.
Yeah.
From me, and it looks very nice.
Thanks.
I like it.
Yeah.
And did you also notice in the studio, I brought in some decor?
Oh, yeah. Got some homegrown pumpkins.
If you're watching, these cute little mini pumpkins were grown in our backyard. Ryan decided to do an experiment a couple of years ago. He threw our old pumpkin under the deck.
Yeah.
Just to see what would happen.
Yeah.
You had heard that this might be a possibility.
Yeah, you just throw your old ones, throw a little dirt on top. Next year, you have your own pumpkin patch.
It just started sprouting. So last year, we got a couple big pumpkins, and then this year, we got small ones. So go figure.
Yeah, you need room.
Yeah.
They grow.
It's kind of exciting, though.
Yeah, very exciting.
Also, so this show is called What is Love? You titled it that way.
Yeah.
And Ryan, I just have to say, does anyone from the 90s remember the song? That's all I could think about.
Yeah.
What is love?
Oh, yeah.
Baby, don't hurt me.
Yeah.
Don't hurt me no more.
Yeah.
I think I'm singing a little too high. It's like, dun, 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 dun. Hadaway, I think. I looked it up.
I have no idea.
Okay, so now you can be thinking about that.
Yeah.
That will be in your head all day. But what is love? That's a big question, Ryan.
That is a big question.
What are we talking about today? Are you going to answer this for us?
Talking about love. No, I think we're going to answer this question. I think we can look at scripture to tell us what it is.
And for our listeners, you need to know that this episode was born out of a wedding that Ryan officiated for our niece, Katie. So very, very nice honor, very big honor that he was asked to do that. And Ryan, it was an incredible wedding ceremony. Like, I feel like people really left knowing like the key points of that ceremony.
Oh, thank you.
It's very honoring, but a really good message too. So I'm excited to share this with the Celebrate MarriageCast listeners because it was a really great word.
Yeah, thanks, Michelle.
Mm-hmm.
So, as I said, we're gonna look at scripture today and answer what is love. If you want to sing along, you certainly can. We are looking at 1 Corinthians 13, verses 4 through 7.
All right, I'm flipping there.
Okay.
I got the paper today. I'm flipping there. 1 Corinthians 13.
Yes.
All right. Verses
4 through 7.
Perfect. I have a little heart by it.
Oh, nice.
In my Bible.
Yeah, that's great.
Sweet.
So it says, love is patient, love is kind. It does not envy, it does not boast. It is not proud. It does not dishonor others. It is not self-seeking. It is not easily angered. It keeps no records of wrongs. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices in the truth. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, and always perseveres.
Those are wedding verses, aren't those?
Yeah.
You heard those at a lot of weddings.
You've probably heard these verses at, most weddings you probably go to. They're often referred to as like the love verses. Mm-hmm. And I think they paint, Michelle, such a beautiful picture of what love is. It's a love that we all want. It's a love that we all desire. When we hear that, it's like,
That sounds nice.
That sounds amazing.
Yes, please.
Right.
I'll have double doses of all of that.
Right. But if we dig into these verses a little bit, I think we see some interesting things. See, if you really look at these closely, you see that this type of love requires action. It requires you to do something. See, in this context, love is actually a verb. So let's look at a few examples of this. So right from the beginning, verse 4, the very first part of this, love is patient. So I think we can all agree that patience doesn't necessarily come naturally to us.
Yeah. And I think especially if you are a parent or a spouse or parent, both of those things will very easily reveal that to you.
Yeah.
That patience is a practiced skill.
Yes. And it takes an intentional action. I think certainly in your marriage, in your relationship, we've shared this, that Michelle, you and I are very vastly different. Mm-hmm. Well, that requires at times an act of patience to understand you, to understand where you're coming from, to understand why you're responding a certain way. It is an intentional act of saying, okay, I'm going to be patient with you because I love you.
Yeah.
And so but it is an intentional action.
That was something I really learned from you early on in our marriage, Ryan. And it was something we've shared this that used to drive me crazy is that if we'd have a disagreement, Ryan would be so quiet and I would just say something. Just say something. Driving me crazy. Respond. And Ryan, I just remember early on you saying, Michelle, you don't want me to say something right now. It's not going to be good.
Right.
I'm doing this to honor you, to cherish you, to collect my thoughts, to give a moment, take a breath. And it really, that patience, that was you demonstrating patience.
Right.
And that was you demonstrating love for me.
Yeah.
And I've since really worked on that. And I feel learned that from you.
Yeah.
Just being patient. Today we were heading to come here and our son had something come up and instead of just being oh my gosh, we're running late. It was just, you know what? It's okay, buddy. Hey, we'll get it. Let's just take care of this.
Right.
We'll get this fixed. And it's really, it kind of dictates the course that whole conversation goes in.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I think, Michelle, you hit it. I think parenting requires a big act of patience.
The ultimate test.
The ultimate test, maybe, of, you have a child that's asking a million questions. And, but they don't know. They're honest in asking a question because they want to know.
Right.
But it's also, it takes an intentional action to show patience with them.
Yeah. I think maybe something interesting for people to consider is, are you less patient with your spouse or your children, one or the other? Because I think sometimes I see people might, and I see this with myself, which is why I want to pose a question. I can be really patient with our son, but sometimes I'm not as patient with you.
Sure.
So I know that I have the potential to be patient. And for other people, maybe you're less patient with your kids, more patient with your spouse, but it's kind of an interesting check to do because I know that I'm capable of it. So it's I know that I can do that. I just need to practice it more. I need to be take my thoughts captive, right? We're supposed to take our thoughts captive and just slow down and really exercise that.
Right. Yeah. That's a great question. I would say I'm probably, I don't know.
You're pretty patient all around.
I'm wondering if some of that has to do with a reaction.
I think you're less patient at work maybe. And I don't know for sure, but I just know that sometimes there's frustrations. But maybe it's just who's pushing your buttons.
Yeah, very true. That's very true. And I think a lot of that comes to, I'm not trying to continually say this over and over again, but, it does have to do, I think, with this concept of the same team. Being on the same team, that I know that, okay, you might ask me a million questions and, because you want to know all the details. Mm-hmm. And
Yeah, don't ever watch a show or a movie with me unless you're prepared to pause it every 5 minutes, which is how my brain works. I have to understand everything and I can't miss anything and I have to process as I go. And I also read this way, which takes me forever to read things because I have to process every detail. And we were watching a show with our son and it was so funny. Because Thomas was like, Dad, can you pause it? Yes, question. Dad, can you pause it? Ask question. And you just looked at me and you just like smiled at me.
Are
like
exactly the same. It's great.
But you exercise patience with that.
Yeah. Yeah. Does this ever happen to anybody else? So you're watching a show, somebody comes in like a new character, and that usually warrants a pause.
Wait, who's that?
Yeah. Who is that? What are they doing here?
I don't want to miss anything. I don't want to miss a key plot line, but I do have to realize that sometimes things are being revealed to all of us at the same time.
Right. Yep.
To get to happen. So just get caught up on things.
Yeah. But so anyway, all of that to say that patience requires an intentional action.
Yeah.
Love requires an intentional action.
Yeah. Also, I want to tie this into a really excellent message that Pastor Reed just gave this past weekend because it does tie in. So there's patience like in the moment, but there's also patience just in waiting for things like long-term, right? We know like you're supposed to wait upon the Lord. Because I feel like this ties in with patience. There was a line given this weekend and it said, just like, I think Pastor Noah actually had given this feedback, just like you would go to a restaurant and you would have a wait staff. That wait staff is not just sitting around. They're actively waiting. They're serving you. So the point of that whole thing was sometimes patience requires action, which is exactly what you just said too, Ryan.
Yeah.
Waiting on the Lord, patience, those things require action.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's talk about verse 5. So in my translation, it actually says the word rude. I have the NIV. I don't know this almost, do you know what version you use, Ryan? NLT?
I think it was NLT, I believe.
So verse 5 says, this is talking about love. It does not dishonor others. It is not self-seeking. It is not easily angered. It keeps no record of wrongs. Okay, there's a lot there. So we're talking, it does not dishonor. It's not self-seeking. It's not easily angered, and it keeps no records of wrong. I think this really does take intentional action. I want to talk about a couple of parts here. So first, how are you talking about your spouse? Are you building them up or are you tearing them down? And I think it might be easy to say, oh yeah, I'm positive, but really think about that. Maybe this next week here as you go about your text messages, as you talk to your friends, I think it can be really sneaky to, without even really thinking about it, put them down. It requires a lot of conscious effort. So, what was it the other day? I was sending a message to somebody, and the reason behind this problem was something that I think you had kind of like created. But instead of saying,
possible.
Instead of saying like, oh, my husband, I just said, hey, I don't know what it was. We're running late, blah, blah, blah. Or we forgot, blah, blah, blah. Something like that. I could have just said, hey, whatever, my husband, is his fault. He's, he forgot. He's so forgetful. I didn't say any of that. I just said, hey, we need to take care of this, blah, blah, blah. I just cut to the fact. And I think there have been moments where, in talking to, a friend or, with this appointment or whatever it was, it would be really easy to kind of passively throw him under the bus, but it takes action, like conscious awareness action to not do that. And that is my way of honoring you because it's a really slippery slope. And I think very few times have I like done that. I really try hard not to. And sometimes I'll like, if I'm typing something, I'll kind of catch and be like, no, I don't want to even just the slightest hint of putting you down.
Sure. Yeah.
If I'm talking with my friends, whatever that is.
Yeah.
I work really hard to honor you.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's a big thing in our culture today. of just, a lot of it's done under the guise of joking,
Mm.
And I think, unfortunately, I think men get a lot of the brunt of this. And maybe women do too. I don't know. I mean, I'm just speaking from my standpoint of, of just being forgetful, being dumb, like having this stereotypical, comments made. And I think, but I think a lot of that comes out, and it's unfortunate that I think there's a lot of comments that are made that are very dishonoring.
I think maybe there's even unknown peer pressure put on. If you're with a group, people are kind of just spouse bashing. It just, I don't know, like, don't fall into that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Be above reproach with that.
Right. Yeah.
Did you have something more you wanted to say on that?
No, I mean,
Okay.
I think that's a good word. I think honor is not used a lot anymore.
I wanted to talk a little bit about with that, the whole thought process with even your internal thoughts. So we shared this story a couple of weeks ago. Our daughter had tried to FaceTime us, and I really wanted to talk to her. I came home, I was out doing errands, and Ryan was sitting there on the couch, his legs kicked up. I mean, granted, he was icing his knee, but his legs were propped up, and I was like, "Oh, you're talking to Ella?" And he was like, "Yeah, she called." I was like, "Oh," and he was like, "Well, you can just jump in." And they were like 10 minutes into the call. So I just was really frustrated because I felt like I missed the good version of all the stories she was telling. And, I just got like kind of the leftover version of, the quick retell was what I was worried was going to happen. And I was so frustrated about it because we just weren't seeing eye to eye. Ryan was like, "Well, she called, so I answered." And I'm like, the problem isn't that you answered. The problem is like that you didn't think, "Oh, Michelle's out doing extra errands for our family because I'm, laid up right now with my knee." And I could just say, "Hey, it's great, kiddo, that you called, but can you wait 10 minutes?" So that was the issue. You kept thinking that I was mad that you answered the call, but it really was that you didn't just like have her hold on, or call back. So I was really worked up over it. And I found myself, I was getting home, I went and put myself away, like went to the bathroom, and I just found myself muttering under my breath. And I was really tempted to be like, like what an idiot, or just like, "Oh, he just doesn't get it. He just doesn't get me," and just those things that you can kind of be tempted to kind of mutter under your breath. But I had to really take my thoughts captive and be like, no, I'm not even going to allow myself to like think this or mutter it, because it just kind of sends your thought path in a negative direction. So I was thinking about the verse from James 3. This is James 3. We're going to start with 3, James 3:3. So in the section is called Taming the Tongue. When we put bits into the mouths of horses to make them obey us, we can turn the whole animal. Or take ships as an example. Although they are so large and are driven by strong winds, they're steered by a very small rudder, wherever the pilot wants to go. Likewise, the tongue is a small part of the body, but it makes great boasts. Consider what a great forest is set on fire by a small spark. I think that's the end of that section. So even your internal thoughts or things that you just kind of, your self-talk, I think is a really big deal, because again, it just kind of plants little seeds and it creates that drift. The more that I kind of paint that dialogue of, Ryan just doesn't get me, he's just so, stupid. I've never said that, but like things like that you could be tempted to say in a moment of frustration,
sure,
really can be divisive and can kind of start making it a skewed arrow, kind of turning your ship in a direction where now you're starting to believe these things. And then the next time it's like, which ties in to the second part of that verse, which is love does not keep record of wrongs. So letting forgiveness be forgiveness, not bringing it up again, unless you're doing a podcast and trying to think of a real practical example to share with your listeners. But I'm not bringing that example up with Ryan. We're not having a disagreement. And I'm saying, "Oh, you always do this. It's just like the time that you didn't let me be on the call with Ella." I'm not bringing that up. That is yesterday's garbage. That's already been taken out to the landfill. I'm not going to go out there and pull it back into my house.
Yeah. I think that's such a good word, Michelle. I'm so glad you brought that up, because I think, I think people sometimes will weaponize, past events, or like this instance. You just mentioned that. It's just like when you did this, and like they're keeping this record of things that were done wrong to them, and then they use that at a future point.
Or starting to do black or white thinking. Oh, you always.
Yeah.
If someone calls the next time, oh, you always cut me out of the phone call. Oh, you never let me be part. That's really dangerous to start going into those black and whites.
Yeah, totally. And I think the other part that I think we can fit in here is this idea of like keeping score. I think that topic comes up a lot too. So give an example of that. Not from our life. No, well,
just kidding.
I mean, like for example, like, you may have this where, you're getting in a disagreement about, let's say, about cleaning.
Sure.
And all of a sudden you're like, I've emptied the dishwasher 5 times this week. You haven't done anything.
Sure.
Where you start keeping this record of, I've done this and you've done nothing.
I think that happens a lot with people, especially with chores.
Yeah. And I'm recalling this happening at one point to us. I don't remember.
Okay, so I think it did happen when you were very fresher in your injury. I think I was feeling really overwhelmed with all of the dinners, and I think it was like, oh, Ryan, I've done dinner every day this week, and I've done this and this, but you physically could not.
Yeah.
Your brace is off today, though.
It is off.
Just a fun little fact for our listeners.
All the
gear is gone.
The gear is gone.
Crutches are gone. Yeah. Brace is gone.
But going back to that, I think what's difficult, like in this scenario, where maybe you've emptied the dishwasher. Well, there's also a list of things that your spouse has probably done too that you haven't done.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's where it gets, I think, dangerous of like, oh, but I've made the bed every day. I've done this. I vacuumed. I did like this big old list of things.
Oh my gosh. I remember this. Now because this is not really, we don't typically go down that road, but I do remember this conversation.
It was a long time ago.
You were standing, maybe it wasn't this time with your leg. Maybe it was the last. I don't remember, but I remember you were standing by the door to the garage and I was over by the dishwasher. So maybe it was dishes. I don't know. And you just said, Michelle, I didn't do that because I did this and this and this and this and this and this and this. And then I felt like a real schmuck. I was like...
But I wasn't any better because I had my own record that I was keeping. So
that's true. But I think that's good to realize that things might not always be what you think. So it's really seeking understanding and going to him and instead being like, Ryan, I feel like I have unloaded the dishwasher a lot. Like, are you like, I don't know, like, are you able to, just like a nice way to ask, like, are you able to do it next time? And then you can just nicely say, oh, my sweet love, well, I was going to do the dishwasher, but I actually decided to, take out the trash and do this and this and this. And so just so you know, that's what I've been doing.
Yeah, it's a dangerous. I would steer clear. And I think when I think of no records, no record of wrongs, no like ammunition to come at you.
Sure.
Like I think that's the part that I think people use this. And that's not what love is. As that verse particular talks about. No records of wrongs.
Yeah. Well, I mean, think about our relationship with our Heavenly Father. Can you imagine every time you did something being reminded of all the things that you've already gone to God and asked for forgiveness for?
Right. Yeah.
Like, can you just imagine? Think of your entire life. What if there was just a record book of all of your sin, all of the things that you've gone and repented for? And then some little thing happens and it all of a sudden it's this whole list that just unrolls. Right. And God's like, oh yeah, Michelle, hey, you know what? You were unkind, to your family. hey, well, just so you know, I want you to remember like last year and last month and this, and remember in your 20s and this.
Right.
That would be awful.
Yeah. Yeah.
That'd be awful. But that's not God's picture for our relationship with him or our spouse.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. That's great, Ryan.
Yeah. So then the next, if we just take this next verse, love does not delight in evil, but rejoices in the truth. You know, is there truth being told in your marriage? You know, I've heard this said before of like, you know, when you tell a lie, the problem is you have to remember all of the lies. You have to keep your story straight on who you told what and constantly remember who you told what lie to and trying to keep all of that straight in your head.
I would be an awful liar because I have a terrible memory.
It doesn't work, you know? So like, that's the part. Truth. Are you speaking truth? There's only one story. It's the truth. Here it is. You don't have to remember all of this other stuff.
Yeah.
That happened.
And we know that the truth sets you free. So think about not being chained by all those lies either.
Right. And I think lies will blow up in your face. There's no room in love for telling lies.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I want to share this story. It's a super embarrassing story, but I want to set it up this way. You know, Michelle, maybe jump in here. Have you ever, as you've gotten older, realized like your parents were right on certain things?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, I think that's just a part of growing up.
Yeah, in the time, I'm like, oh, that's dumb. And now I'm like, oh, man, they were right.
Do you have a story to tell us,
I
Ryan?
do have a story. So here's a perfect example of a lie blowing up. But it's a lesson that I will say taught me immensely. So I was probably 18 years old, had just moved back. It was the summer after my freshman year of college. So I'd had this taste of freedom, right? And I was like, oh yeah, I'm going to do what I want to do, you know, because I've been so used to doing it. I get home, parents tell me there's a curfew. I'm like, what?
What is this?
What is this? I've been living on my own, doing whatever I want to do all year long. Come back. Okay. So there was a night that I was past my curfew. Not like a few minutes past. I'm talking like an hour, maybe 2 hours. I'm driving home with a buddy of mine. And, you know, so it's like a 20-minute drive. And we're concocting this story.
Okay.
We've got like this great ultimate lie.
Right.
So I get home. My dad's waiting for me.
Oh, man.
And
don't mess with Dan.
So I tell this elaborate story about where we were, what we were doing, that I was over at my buddy's house. We were doing stuff, but we were over at his house. The words had just left my mouth. The phone rings. This was like before cell phones. Nobody had cell phones at that point. The phone rings. It's my buddy's dad calling. Talks to my dad, asking where we were, because he'd not seen us all night long.
So your friend was there with you?
My friend was there with me, and we had told my dad that, hey, we were over at this friend's house. We've been hanging out there all night long, like, you know, just doing stuff.
Caught red-handed. Oh, snap.
Yeah.
Bad timing.
Yeah, I literally had just said the words and the phone rings, and my buddy's dad is calling, asking where we were, that he hadn't seen us. Needless to say, this thing blows up in my face so bad. And to make it worse, I was angry about my curfew before. The rest of that summer, so like 3 months, I had to be home before dark.
Okay. I mean, yeah, that's pretty early in the summer. I don't know. What time was that? 9, 10?
Yeah, like 9 p.m.
For like a college student?
For a college student.
Oh, man.
Yeah. So the moral of this story, Michelle, is I think when you bring a lie into a relationship, into your marriage, it it won't work. And it will turn out, it will blow up, and it'll be worse than it was before. Just like my curfew example, right? I thought it was bad before. I told this lie. It got so much worse.
9 o'clock for a college student.
It was terrible.
I think about truth will always come out too, right? Like what's hidden in the dark will always find a way for it to, like, for the light, I just think that it's just a matter of time. It's a matter of time.
Absolutely.
Before it comes out.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's a tough way to live too. So I think if there are things, then maybe it's finding a safe space to disclose those. Maybe it's a counselor, or maybe, it's just a super safe space where you can connect with your spouse and bring some of that stuff to light. But I think, probably a Christian counselor would be a really smart move if that's applicable to you.
Absolutely. Michelle, I'm glad you brought that up, because there are cases where obviously, like, if something needs to come to light, that it would probably be very good to have someone there.
Yeah. Help you process through it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, Michelle, to wrap this up here, I think it's so important to remember that love is not just something that happens, right? It doesn't just, just a great marriage. You've said this, that like great marriages don't just happen. Love requires intentional work and intentional action. Marriage, love, relationships are a lot of work. They take a lot of action, but I think the rewards are so worth it.
Yeah.
And I think all we have to do is just look at the very last verse of that scripture that we shared. And it says, love always protects, love always trusts, love always hopes, and love always perseveres. And I think we can let this verse be our manual, be the answer of what is love.
Yeah.
I think we can just go right back to this verse.
And what a beautiful picture. I feel like we have that with our marriage. Like, as you read those words, love always protects, it trusts, it hopes, it perseveres.
Yeah.
How beautiful. What a beautiful picture.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks, Ryan. Great show.
Yeah.
Do you know what time it is?
What time is it, Michelle?
It's mystery question time. Thanks for turning in your questions. Is it my time to pick? I think it is. I let you pick last time.
Hey, you gave me the paper. I didn't crinkle it.
You did very good.
Yeah.
Yes. So next time you will be able to do that again.
Nice.
Do you want to read it? I don't care. You can read it.
Sure, I can read it.
Okay, sure.
All right.
See how nice I am.
Yeah. All right. What would you say to a couple who argues a lot about money? Any advice in this area?
Well, I know this is going to be a shocker, but remember, you're on the same team. So I think knowing that, if you have a spender and a saver, and that's what the arguments are about, just knowing at the end of the day, like, your spouse is probably upset because they're trying to help protect your family. You're on the same team. And then trying to get to the bottom line and the cause behind those disagreements. Like, what is it really about? Is it about the shoes, or is it about the fact that, I don't know, that is taking away something else from the family? Like, maybe one spouse wanted to, has something else in mind, or maybe it's, groceries or whatever. Just getting on the same page because you are on the same team. Next, I would say Financial Peace University. You've heard us talk about it. Would be a really great area for you to check out. It's an incredible program that a lot of churches offer.
Yeah, it's a good answer, Michelle.
What about you, Ryan?
I would say that I'm wondering, are you talking about it? Like, is there intentional conversation, or is it just arguments? Because I think that's a key of making sure, Michelle, you said this, that you're both on the same page with what needs to be done, where things are going, but are you actually having the conversations? Or does it, again, does it just blow up Is it just you spent blah, blah, blah at Starbucks? Like, what are you doing? Is it, are you having meetings? Are you having budget meetings? Are you having, what's your, what is that like? Because I think it's so important. It's so important that you're on the same page with your finances, that you have those pivotal meetings, that you have those pivotal conversations.
Yeah, great response, Ryan. And I think about even our show today, love is patient, love is kind. Love is patient, love is kind. So scheduling finance conversations outside of the heat of the moment is probably not the best time to talk. If your spouse comes home with a bag full of whatever clothes or shoes or golf clubs, that's maybe not the right moment because emotions are going to be high, but maybe scheduling a finance meeting, getting on the same page and getting some conversations going.
Yeah, I mean, money is a tool, and it's just a matter of how you use it, and I think if you can get on the same page with that, have discussions, meet with somebody, meet with a financial planner, or something like that, of just actually, have that person facilitate your conversation if it's uncomfortable.
Yeah, it's great. Great advice.
But get on the same page as to how you're going to use that tool.
Great advice. I love that. It's just a tool. Thank you for listening to our show today. You are such a crucial part of the Celebrate MarriageCast. This is the whole reason that the show is done, to help you and your relationship. So thank you for listening. And we would love to hear feedback from you. Send in a mystery question. We have our number below. You can leave a comment for us, a review. We would love that. That would be such a great compliment for us to have a review. Also, our Celebrate MarriageCast on Instagram. Celebrate MarriageCast is the name for that. So we'd love to connect with you there. The team has a lot of shorts that we post that are just really great. So also, we have resources at Celebrate.church/marriage. We would love to help you out in that way as well. And we hope that you have a great week.
Have a great week.